Welcome back to Analytical Strategy. Today I'm going to be discussing my Dream Survivor cast and season. I've been asked a few times to create my Dream Survivor cast with absolutely no restrictions in place. So obviously the first thing I did was put a little bit of a restriction on who I can select by making a theme to this season. My dream cast would involve international survivors connecting and being able to battle it out with one another. So my dream season theme would be Survivor Australia versus Survivor America. There have been some phenomenal players from both countries to play the game of Survivor, and as a resident of Australia who has watched US Survivor for the past 20 years, it is actually the perfect season for me to create. It would be an interesting season to watch, as one big factor would be whether the contestants would be hellbent on getting someone from their own country to win the game, or whether they would be willing to create these bonds from both sides as these contestants would do in a normal season. Now, I didn't put any restrictions on who I want to return from these two series, but as Australian Survivor is only a few seasons deep, I just selected my favourite players to play to date. And as US Survivor has had far more seasons, I selected a combination of my absolute favourites in addition to players I really want to get the chance to play again. I'm not sure if an international edition of Survivor would ever happen, but if it did, I would hope it would look a little something like this. So I'm going to start with the American tribe, as if you haven't seen Australian Survivor yet, there will be spoilers when selecting that tribe, so watch those selections at your own risk. So starting with the males, the first American male I would love to see play this season is my favourite player who has ever played the game. Not only as a character, but as a strategist. Yes, of course, it is none other than Tony Vlachos. Tony is one of two-time winners, so obviously is a remarkable player of the game. But not only that, he is amazing on TV. Seeing the type of player that will do anything to get to the end, hide in bushes, trees, shacks, you name it, to get the intel that he needs to make his decisions, is the type of player that I love to watch. An amazing player and addition to any season, and he is a must-have on my dream cast. So up next we have a one-time player, a one-time winner. He obtained every single vote at the final tribal council and he was never in danger of being voted off. Yes, it is the amazing Earl Cole. Earl came into Survivor Fiji as someone who really didn't know the game that well. He learnt the game on the fly and he learnt it quicker than anyone has ever done before. His duo with Yeoman has got to be up there with one of the best duo Survivor has ever seen, and it was a damn shame to not see him play again in Winners at War. He's definitely a player who I'd love to see get the chance to play again, and he is my second male selection in this dream cast. So my next selection is another one-time winner who didn't get a chance to play on Survivor Winners at War. He is renowned for giving the best final tribal council speech in the history of US Survivor, and that is Todd Herzog. I really love Todd's game in China, the way he positioned himself in the middle of his alliance. He aligned with the weakest player, the strongest player, and other strategic forces, so if people did come after their alliance, he would hopefully go unnoticed. He was able to fulfill a dream of getting on the show, making it to the end, and playing a phenomenal game. So as me personally, being a big fan, he is definitely the type of player I can relate to a lot. I really hope he gets a chance to come back and show how good of a player he actually is, and therefore he was an automatic selection on my dream cast. So continuing with my theme of Missed Winners at War participants, I'm going with Chris Daugherty, the winner of Survivor Vanuatu. I think if someone rivals Todd for the best final tribal council ever for US Survivor, it has got to be Chris. Not only that, before Tony came along, Chris was probably my favourite character to ever be on the show. The dude is just so underrated as a winner. He has had one of the best arcs and stories the show has ever seen, being the reason his tribe lost the first immunity challenge to being the powerhouse he was for the remainder of the game. Getting Twyla to fire up in the final two whilst he stayed humble was one of the most underrated moves the show has ever seen. And if there was one person in the history of American Survivor I would like to see get their second chance, Chris would probably be my number one choice. So my final male pick from US Survivor is my first non-winner selection, but he is the player who has literally been able to make a living off Survivor, and that is none other than the king of Survivor podcasting himself. Yes, it is Rob Cesternino. Rob played a transformational game in Survivor the Amazon. At the time, he was without question the best player to ever play the game and not win, and could still arguably be in that conversation. He made moves no one had ever seen before, such as targeting the swing vote. He changed the game from being about core alliances to self-preservation. In the reunion of Survivor the Amazon, I think Rob gave one of the best lessons you could ever teach someone who is to play the game of Survivor, and that notice Survivor is about not only being able to know where you stand in the game in terms of numbers, but also where other people think they stand. This is really the key of being able to flip the game and people onto your side, and being able to give them an incentive or a better offer than what they have currently. One of my favourite players and people in the Survivor community, and it would be fantastic to get to see him play again, and therefore he's a lock in my dream season. And moving on to the women from the US tribe, and firstly is the person to whom he beats out Rob as the best player to never win the game, and that is of course Cirie Fields. Cirie is arguably the most popular contestant that has ever played Survivor. She is someone that whenever she comes back, no matter how many times she has played, she is someone I am happy to see be named to play Survivor again. She's been so damn close to winning the game 3 out of the 4 times she's played, and she really has been unfortunate and unlucky, going out to fire making challenges, surprise final 2s, and even going home by default. Maybe the unluckiest person that has ever been successful at Survivor, and I would absolutely love to see her on this dream season. Up next to me is the person who I deemed as the best ever player of Survivor prior to Survivor Winners at War, and that is Kim Spradlin. Yes, to me she played the best game ever in One World prior to Tony's game in season 40, and after a rocky start she backed up this performance with a good showing when she returned in this season. A lot of people say she only won because she played with a weak cast, but I don't buy into that too much, and if anything, Kim made this cast look worse than it was due to how good she is at this game. She played the cards she was dealt, and she played them with basically no mistakes. She ran rings around her competition. She is an absolute superstar when it comes to Survivor, and for that reason I can't not include her within this season. And speaking of superstars, the next contestant I'm selecting has played the game 3 times before, but we haven't seen her out on the island since her appearance in Heroes vs Villains. Whilst playing the game 3 times, she's only been voted out once. Yes, it is Amanda Kimmel. Going back to back in China and Micronesia, not only in seasons but also making it to the finals, is ridiculously impressive. She holds the record for the most consecutive days played due to this, and if it wasn't for her final Tribal Council performances being subpar compared to her opponents, she could have easily won this game twice. She really is a triple threat and has all components of the game in social, strategic and physical down pat. It has been too long since we've seen Amanda, and it would be great to see her out there again. So up next we have another one-time player and one-time winner who didn't get the chance in Survivor Winners at War, and that is Vecepia, the winner of Survivor Marquesas. Vecepia definitely played one of the best under-the-radar games to date in Survivor, and she actually had some really great unique strategies, such as bringing her journal as her luxury item in preparation for the Know Your Contestants challenge later in the season. It is a real shame we are yet to see her return. I believe she was asked to come back for Season 8 Survivor All-Stars but got cut after accepting. She is the earliest winner that hasn't gotten the chance to return, and for that, in addition to her being an underrated winner, is why I think she is deserving to get the chance to play the game again. So the last US castaway I'm casting in my dream season was a really nice surprise in Survivor Winners at War, and that is none other than Sophie Clarke. Sophie is another contestant I relate to as a super fan of the show, and I really relate to her chill and laid back personality. Sophie played a great game in Survivor South Pacific, but her edit didn't really show how good of a player she was, with big personalities such as Coach and Aussie getting a lot of screen time over her. So she really showed off her game and how good of a player she is in Survivor Winners at War. Many thinking she probably got more of a winner's edit in this season compared to the season that she actually won. She made big moves, she was a person many contestants wanted to work with, and she managed alliances in an amazing fashion, especially given the big names of the cast she was playing with. It was great to see this evolution of Sophie, and it left me wanting to see more of her, so she finishes out my American tribe in this dream cast. So moving along to the Australian tribe, and as mentioned, there will be some spoilers of how these contestants have done in previous seasons of the show. However, I won't go into some specific moves, as I am looking to discuss my favourite Australian Survivor strategies in an upcoming video. There have been some amazing players to date, and these are my favourite 5 males and 5 females to appear on the show so far. So the first male should come as absolutely no surprise. It is the Golden God and Australian Survivor's best player by the length of the Nile, and that is David Genat. David to me played probably a top 5, maybe even a top 3 game internationally in Survivor history in Australian All-Stars. You could argue that this was the best performance ever. He really is that good. David made huge moves when he had to. He formed bonds with the enemy by proposing game theory. He wins challenges, he finds idols which he never had to use, which shows how high of a skill level he actually had. The guy really is amazing at Survivor, and not only that, he is absolutely hilarious as a character. The faces he makes to the camera when the others aren't looking, his confessionals, his tribal management, it all is just incredible to watch. As I believe David does have dual citizenship, I think he could actually qualify to be able to play on American Survivor, so if he got the chance to do that, it would be fantastic to see. So next on the list is the king of playing from the bottom of the tribe, and that is Dirty Harry. Harry to me just seems like an all-around great bloke. He knows it is just a game, and he doesn't take it personally at all. He appeared on Survivor Sequester, and got to play with some contestants from American Survivor in this mini online version, and when he got voted out he was super chill and kind, whilst other contestants on the jury were popping off for being voted out. Harry was able to idle his way to the merge in his original season, and somehow was able to make it all the way to the final 3, where he was one challenge short of winning the game. Harry got the chance to play again in Survivor All-Stars, and again was playing from the bottom all the way until David voted him out, and he voted him out purely just so he could beat his record for the most consecutive days played. A really switched on player with a lot of knowledge for the game, and has the type of game style which I really respect, and there's no doubt in my mind that Harry will play again in a future season. So the next Australian male we are going to include was so well liked by the public, they started a crowdfund for him and raised him $500,000. It is the king of the jungle, it is Luke Toki. Luke is not only hilarious and has an amazing personality, he's able to use this personality to his advantage in the game, and he also has a lot of natural talent for the game of Survivor. Both times Luke played, he was voted out deep into the game, and it was due to him being the biggest threat to win the money. If Luke gets to the end, he's winning, that's all there is to it. Luke has made that many blindsides during his time on the game, and he really just looks like he's having a heap of fun whilst playing. Dave and Luke were comedy gold when they played together, and having them back together is something that I would love to see again. So up next to me we have the biggest omission in Survivor Australian All-Stars, and that is Benji Wilson. It took a few episodes for Benji to shine when he played, but once he got going he was a strategic force, and to me the best strategic player on this season. He was always willing to play both sides, and willing to vote out his closest ally if it resulted in him staying in the game. He's also extremely successful outside of Survivor, and although he was cast for the Contenders tribe, he was a self-made millionaire in his mid-20s, an extremely intelligent guy, and given we couldn't see him again in All-Stars, he is a must-have for me in this dream season. So my final Australian male contestant is another winner of the show who is instantly targeted by the Golden God for exactly that, winning, and it is the cookie monster Jericho. Jericho was able to use this simplistic moral dilemma of obtaining a jar of cookies to his advantage by reeling in a bunch of allies. His cheeky nature was perfectly matched to his partner in crime, the king of the jungle Luke, and he was able to hide behind Luke to get him further in the game. Once Luke had been eliminated, Jericho really turned up his game. He made fire at the final 4, and he got to the end and won. He was able to come back in All-Stars, however with winners being such big targets he wasn't able to last too long. But in a season like this with multiple winners and huge targets, it would be great to see Jericho back in action. So moving on to the women within the Australian tribe, and firstly is the biggest challenge beast Australian Survivor has seen, and that is Brooke. Brooke for me was probably the best player within Survivor returning to Australian TVs in its first season comeback. All the way through I thought she was playing a great game, and if it wasn't for Flick turning on her, I think both of them would have actually made it to the end and Brooke probably would have taken it out. Coming back to All-Stars, obviously she was physically amazing and was the biggest immunity threat when it came down to the merge. I think she lacked a little bit strategically by being too loyal, not as cutthroat as she should have been when opportunities arose, and really focused too much on the revenge portion of the game of getting Flick out. If she can come back and put her mind into each individual and how they benefit her game, I think Brooke can do really well, and she is the type of player that will always make it deep and have a shot of getting to the end. So up next we have another winner of Australian Survivor who didn't come back for All-Stars, but it would be great to see her play again, and that was Pia Miranda. I think Pia has a phenomenal understanding of the game, and especially how you have to play differently in Australian Survivor to American Survivor, due to there being extra days in the game. Pia arguably played this the most perfect out of all of the winners, really just being able to kick back, solidify alliances, lay low and keep herself out of the target, using people like Janine and Abby as shields ahead of her. This allowed her to have a great run to the end, and obtain every single vote at the end to take out the prize of Sole Survivor, being the first Australian to win unanimously at the final tribal. I feel like although now Pia is a big threat in the game, it wouldn't surprise surprise me to see her play a similar game if she were to return, and if she was able to get through the first few votes of the season, she would be a threat once again in the later stages of the game. So after Pia, we have someone who has played twice, but the first time they played they had to unfortunately be voted out of the tribe due to illness even though she was well positioned in the game, and that is Moana. When Mo returned to All Stars, I'm not going to lie, in the opening few episodes I was pretty underwhelmed, with her being on the bottom of the numbers and not looking to make any inroads outside of her minority alliance. As the game went on, each episode I became much more impressed with Mo, and understood why she played the game so low key earlier on. She continuously raised her profile, becoming more dangerous each and every episode, and she was able to do it really subtly, without it being obvious that she was a massive player. She was a power player in All Stars, a big threat to win, and arguably played the next best game to David this season. Staying in the shadows worked a treat for Mo this season, and I think she could do well if she returned again. So up next we have a very underrated individual challenge contender, but is well known for being one of, if not the best social player Australia has seen, and that is Shonee. Shonee is just so likeable. She is the type of person many people would want to play the game with. She created core alliances like Chanela and the Little Rascals, and her social charm enabled her to make 2 deep runs into the game, and she will always be a jury threat if she was able to take her game to the next level. Shonee was perceived as a weak tribe member in the early stages of the game in Survivor All Stars, but she proved them wrong by dominating and winning a couple of immunities. Shonee also found an idol and correctly played it to keep herself in the game. If she were to return, I don't think people would underestimate her as much as they did in All Stars, and if they did, it could be to their own demise. And finally, like Cirie is probably the best player to never win in American Survivor, the person who takes that crown in Australian Survivor is Sharn. Sharn was able to be the runner-up in both of her seasons, which is extraordinarily difficult when it is 39 days with final 3s, but that extra step harder when it is 50 days and a final 2. It is actually pretty remarkable. She has never been voted out. I think Sharn deserved to win the first time she made the finals, and if her final Tribal Council speech was a little more refined, she probably would have taken it out. Against Dave, it was obviously a much harder task, but they took very different routes to get their position in the final 2. Sharn was more of a swing vote player, which allowed her to obtain information from all of the players in the game, which is a credit to her social ability and kind persona, which she uses to her advantage as well. A huge threat anytime she plays, and she deserves the last spot in my dream Survivor cast. So there you have it, my dream cast for my dream season of Survivor, with it being Survivor America versus Survivor Australia. If this were to ever happen, it would be so amazing to watch how they collide, and what rules they would actually go with to play the game. I feel like if it went for 50 days, the Australian contestants would have the slight advantage overall, but for me, I'd prefer to see a 39-day game, 2-hour episodes, no edge of extinction or any of that nonsense, and man oh man, it would really be fun to watch. If I had to even fathom a guess at a winner, I would go with either Chris Daugherty or Sophie Clarke from the American side, or Dirty Harry or Pia Miranda from the Australian side. Honestly, it is impossible to predict, and to me, it wouldn't even matter, as a big name would be going every single episode, and a big name would be winning the game regardless. It would be action-packed, full of not only great strategists, but amazing characters with great personalities. I unfortunately cannot see this ever happening logistically, but that is why it's my dream season and fun to think about hypothetically. What do you guys think of this cast? Would you like to see it? Who do you think would win? Please let me know in the comments. If you are enjoying the content, remember to subscribe and put down a comment of what video you would like to see next. Thanks to everyone for allowing this channel to grow, it really means a lot. This is Analytical Strategy, and that is all I have for you today. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.